You know how many items she had on her love list, which included the size of the nose, the level of whiteness of the teeth, the shoe size. She had 150 items on her list.
Wow.
Did you push record?
Thank you so much for tuning into Second Act TV. Today I'm so happy to introduce you to a new content expert to Second Act, Tina Jesso. I pronounced that right, Tina, didn't I?
You did indeed.
Good. Tina speaks to several topics big here on Second Act TV. One, recreating life after 50. She is a Jack Canfield trainer. Today, I want to pick your brain on, put on your dating coach hat, which Tina is a dating coach and specializes in people over 40. So you're talking to our demographic. You've found love again after 40 or been out there dating for a while. When I read your information, one of the things that you said that women especially need to tune into is to understand who you're looking for. Do you have the right love list? And as we talked off camera, there's some issues with the list that we want to discuss. Let's talk about that, Tina. How do you know who you want?
Yeah, that is such a great question, and I think it's a little maligned as well because sometimes people think they make fun of it now. Some of my dating clients says, "Oh, everybody is talking about the dating list. This is kind of malarkey type of thing," but this is where it all starts, right? If you really want to go out there and have successful dating, first of all, you have to have an idea of what you're looking for. In order to have an idea of what to look for, you have to know yourself.
Yeah.
Right? It really starts from there. So, with my dating clients, for example, we go through like, what are your characteristics? What are your strengths? What do you love to do? Right? How would you like to, maybe you're over 40 or 50, and how would you like to live your life going forward? Therefore, that can kind of dictate the type of person that you're going to be with. Just as a quick example, like you mentioned, I started all over again after the age of 55. After a 32-year career in financial services, I pivoted completely and went into the whole realm of dating, started a dating website, created all these educational programs. So I'm not looking for someone that often in our age group are looking to retire soon. They're looking to slow down. They want someone to travel with, which is beautiful, but I'm not in that space, right? So it's really a question of, looking at where you are in your life, pardon me, who you are, what your values are, particularly what your values are. Is it okay if I give you an idea of a couple of examples of clients that I've taken through this whole process
Oh,
with a lovely?
absolutely, because I think that will give our viewers some insight into what is a good list versus, a sabotaging list. Like one of the comments, or lots of the comments that we get, and also from other dating coaches, is that men especially are turned off on, on the websites when there's must-haves. Here's my must-haves: 6'2", this occupation, that, and those are sabotaging lists. What you're describing are lists that actually aid in the process and that you don't necessarily share on a website or on a dating site. This is something you do for yourself, so you know. Did I get that right?
You are absolutely right. You could write a book on this, Silka, because that is the basics. That's definitely the basic. And just to give you an idea, I had a client of mine, for example, that came to me once, and you know how many items she had on her love list, which included the size of the nose, the level of whiteness of the teeth, the shoe size, the type of haircut, no facial hair, the whole thing. Guess how many items were on that list?
Uh, 80.
Almost double. She had 150 items on her list.
Wow.
Right? So that gets confusing. And also what it does is it focuses a lot on the superficial,
Yeah.
right? It really does focus on the superficial. So I'd say a good love list, you should bring it down to 10 to 15 items at the most. And what should be at the top of your list is essentially your core values or your non-negotiables. Right. And starting with that, and as for, the physical attributes, well, we all have a type, right? And you essentially, after the age of 40 or 50, you have an idea of what your type is, but even that could be challenged. And I took up a challenge, and you mentioned that I've, found love after being online dating for a little while, and that is true. And what I did is I followed John Gray's advice that I think you actually, it was on your show, as a matter of fact, because I wasn't going to ask my clients to do anything I didn't try myself. Right. So, what did John suggest? I don't know if you remember this particular episode, but he talked about, looking for somebody online based on what you can see in their description, what seems to be their values, the type of person that they are, and don't go out with someone that you're physically attracted to
Yes, I
or
remember
over the
that.
top.
That's
Over the
interesting
top.
that that resonated. At first, that didn't make sense to me when he said that, and then that made so much sense. So, yeah, I totally remember. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. So I essentially did that because just full confession, I like big guys, swarthy looking and all of that. That's always been my go-to type. But this time, this profile stood out. This gentleman approached me a couple of times and he was just so nice and so kind and so gentlemanly, but he was small, right? Closer to my height. And he looked maybe a little bit like an accountant, at least in his pictures. It's not my usual type, but he seems such a decent guy. I said, let me follow John's advice and see where that goes. So I met with him for lunch, and Silka, oh my God, it was amazing. He has such a masculine presence and such a beautiful confidence. And the number one thing on my list is kindness.
Oh,
I've had lots of crazy relationships in the past, narcissists, the whole thing. So kindness is number one. And that was his big disarming quality. So after a few get togethers now, and even now, 4 months into it, my heart flutters when he texts or when he calls or just before we get together. I couldn't be more physically attracted to him now, but it grew based on the connection of our core values and where we're going in life and the type of people that we are. So yeah, the love list is really important and following good dating advice because and being prepared to take a risk and do something different. And just because we're over 40 or 50 doesn't mean we have to keep on doing what we did in the past.
yeah, exactly, exactly. It's funny when you were telling your story. I thought of one of my best friends, dating back from high school. She also started over again. She was on online dating in her late 50s. We're both in our 60s now, and but the same thing. There was, and I kind of coached her just for fun, and same thing. She had, she was so set on her type. But there was this one guy who checked all the boxes and everything else because I don't know, this Karen, just go have fun. Well, they've been together 4 years now and are just
Oh wow.
meant for each other. So that is one of the biggest messages that I've been trying to get across when I talk to people like yourself, and when you bring this up is that, gosh, don't pigeonhole yourself into really what these websites tend to lead you into also because of the way that, and you probably know more about this than I do, having created an online presence, is that just the way you input information, it leads you down that characteristics list that can be very harmful.
Exactly. Exactly. Especially with different there's so many dating sites out there, right? And this could be a conversation perhaps for another episode, Silka. But some of the sites like Facebook, for example, they group you according to your interests. Right. So, and that's all well and good, but just be aware that you're being presented certain things, right, based on your former habits. So, if you want to do something that's a little bit out of the usual way of doing things, so just be a little bit more on the hunt, right? Instead of just responding all the time, you could be a little bit more on the hunt. There's a really cute dating app out there that I really liked. Is it okay to mention it?
Sure.
Okay. So, have you ever heard of Hinge?
I have heard of Hinge. It's more, isn't it more in Europe for some reason than here?
Yeah, it started, I think, out there. It's only an app. So a lot of us over 40 and 50 oftentimes like to be on our computers. So you can't do that with Hinge. But it's really fun and it's light and it's an interesting mix of people that are there. It's really interesting to see on the different dating websites. There's different like congregations of types of people that hang out there, depending on what's the overall intent that's been set out by the dating website.
Yeah, I think that'd be a great segment because, and especially since you've been doing it fairly recent, like the last time I online dated was, God, 9 years ago, 8 years ago, and so much has
Right.
changed. There weren't any apps, and I don't know that I would like apps, quite frankly. So for let's definitely do a segment on that. What I'd like to, oh gosh, we're at the end of this one already. Time goes by so fast. But
Yeah.
the point again, Tina, about lists, the do's and don'ts. What is it that you'd want to leave our audience with on a takeaway for preparing yourself, knowing what you want, and not having the list sabotage you, but help you?
Okay, two things. Number one, it's a starting point, and it gives you the guideposts of being able to decide whether you move ahead with somebody in a relationship or not, depending on if they pretty much meet your maybe 10 quality maximum love list. The second thing is, at least personally, I'm a big believer in the law of attraction. Right. So if you put out there what you really want, I think you have a higher chance of attracting it. And when I really nailed down my love list, the gentleman that I'm seeing right now, like he corresponds to that love list by like 90%, but it was well honed in and written down. And it can really work. Highly, highly suggested.
Yeah. And just to summarize again, you would, that is for yourself, not necessarily to put the list of requirements out there, right? Am I summarizing
Yeah,
it?
absolutely. Again, that could be a whole segment again in itself, how you put together a successful profile. But if it looks like, you're demanding certain things, that means that you're shutting certain people off. You know what I mean? It doesn't give a good vibe or a good energy. Just be clear on that. It's people only stop for a millisecond on your profile. And if they feel like there's this list of demands, instead of someone that looks like she's with it, she's got a lot of interesting things going on, and she seems like a really interesting person to get to know. You know what I mean? You'll have a lot more success with your profile and attracting people that are compatible with you.
Great advice. Tina, thank you. I'd like to hold you over for another segment. Let's talk about the do's and don'ts, which you've said you're pretty much on top of that. I think we all were when we first started doing this. So thank you
Absolutely.
again for joining us, being part of Second Act, and we'll see you on our next episode. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
If you haven't already done so, please be sure to subscribe to our channel. The button is right over here. Just click on through to YouTube, and when you see the little bell right next to the subscribe button, hit that too. We'll notify you every time we launch a new video. See you next time.